Okay, this is the meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Education Outreach and Training Committee for September the 14th, 2021. The time is 5:38 p.m. On the call of the roll, Chair Hyland.
Present.
Hyland present. Member Yankee.
Present.
Yankee present. Member Pavaban.
Present.
Pavaban present. We do have a quorum. I'd just like to read a couple of announcements. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order number N33-20, declaring a state of emergency regarding COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency, including guidance for gathering issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health Officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The Board of Supervisors authorized their boards and committee meetings to convene remotely and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine, SUNSHINE. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to update on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Meeting decorum. Any members?
Victor,
yes.
Let me interrupt you there. We don't need to read that out. That's
Okay,
most
no
of our
problem.
edification. We've heard it hundreds of times, and we're aware of it. So let's move on. Okay.
Yes. Give me a moment. I'm trying to catch up as I wasn't expecting this today. Okay, I have not received any requests for agenda changes for today's meeting.
Okay. So next item, I guess, is item 2, adoption of minutes.
Item number 2, adoption of minutes for the August 10th, 2021 Education Outreach and Training Committee meeting.
Okay. Members Yankee and Padmanabhan were there. I was not. Do you have any edits or corrections?
This is Member Yankee. I don't have anything.
Neither do I.
All right.
So I guess I will move to approve the meeting minutes.
All right.
Do we have a second?
What about public comment?
Well, we
Yeah.
need a second first.
We haven't got there yet.
Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Would you like to start public comment at this time, Chair Hyland?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, give me one moment to get set up. Okay. At this time, are there members of the public who wish to provide public comment on item
Yes,
number 2, approval of the minutes for the August 10th, 2021 meeting?
Yes, Warfield, please.
Yes,
Okay.
Jack Hernandez, please.
Give me one moment again. Sorry for that. Okay, Mr. Warfield, you may begin.
Yes, this is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and also at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little muffled, Mr. Warfield.
How's this, better?
That is much better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interject there. That question is to us, not to members of the public to chime in, please. So please mute your microphones unless you are the public speaker. Thank you. Mr. Warfield, go ahead. We'll add time to your clock. Go
How
ahead.
much time do I have left, please?
You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Thank you. I wanted to say that the minutes are very, very partial, and I would say incomplete. Major concerns that members of the public have brought up at that meeting were simply omitted. As an example, in the very first item, it says, Mr. Warfield expressed appreciation to the attention of detail of Mr. Karnazes. Well, I said I appreciated the detail that he had provided in his comments, but also said quite a bit more. I said there were some serious issues with respect to what he had raised. So 2 issues that I raised with respect to that was whether he was given an accommodation request reply. He apparently had not been given a reply to his accommodation request. The other issue was how long do people have under the sunshine practices, how long do people have to provide agenda materials that it seems like usually there had been given just 2 days prior to the deadline for inclusion of materials in the agenda packets. In other words, people were given notices that they were going to have a hearing, but only had 2 days to provide additional material that they might want to include in the agenda packet. And I had specifically mentioned there had been even less provided for Mr. Chafee. I also said that I requested for each mention of Library Users Association contact information that I'd like to have our contact information listed. And also requested, and this is important, not changing documents before they're changed
30 seconds.
officially by the group. On public comment, I said there were repeated errors in the minutes, particularly with respect to the omission of our contact information. I said it was unnerving that Sunshine Task Force was so uncommunicative about how they're operating. I said Mr. Chafee had gotten notice of the meeting after the deadline for his opportunity to put stuff into the agenda, and there was no order of determination yet included as requested.
Time has elapsed.
So there's a lot more that's missing, unfortunately, and I wish you would not approve until there are improvements made.
Thank you. Mr. Karnazes, you may begin your public comment at this time.
Hi, I do not need a 30-second warning. I'm using a timer. I have 3 minutes. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. My name is Zach Karnazes, and I don't understand why this body is putting motions forward before even hearing public comment on this item. Also, I've pointed out that the agenda for this meeting, as previous ones, does not even list that there is public comment in response to approval of meeting minutes, another clerical error. I sent an email on August 31st outlining in detail the incorrect minutes that have been recorded for this meeting. I offered suggestions for correction. I received no reply. I sent another email earlier today. Again, no reply. This unfortunate pattern of this board completely ignoring the public's repeated requests for accurate minute keeping. How can we expect the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force to care at all about public records access, to rule justly about public records access, when they cannot even keep their own records straight about what occurs at these meetings? It is absolutely appalling that the meeting minutes from August does not even state that in file number 21033, I said explicitly that the wrong respondent was in the complaint. I was confused and crying during the meeting because I did not understand what was going on because I had requested a disability accommodation that had been ignored. It does not make any mention of that request that I had made prior to the agenda being published. And not only that, it actually says that I was asking for a violation from the wrong department, which is not the case. These minutes are audio recorded, so the evidence is not hard to show proof that these minutes are completely inaccurate and a continuation of the clerical errors that continue to happen with this department and an unfortunate disregard of the public, really, of the public, which has brought this issue to the attention of this board repeatedly. And time again, when I attend these meetings, the board simply rules, accept the minutes as they are, completely ignore the public, completely disregard any concerns that we have. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Am I supposed to like submit 3 emails? Am I supposed to get an attorney to submit an email for me? How can the public actually take part in a due process for accurate representation of meeting minutes that accurately reflect what actually occurs at these meetings? Someone has information on some sort of process I'm supposed to engage in to inform beyond emailing the clerk and the board here and the committee, which I have done twice. Again, as I mentioned, first on August 31st and again today. Please let me know. I would like to engage in a fair public process, and I think it is very important that meetings are recorded in the permanent public record accurately and without distortion, omission of facts, or incorrect facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to provide public comment? I believe there are no other members of the public for public comment on this item. And I'd just like to make a quick statement. Minutes that we create are for summary purposes only. If members of the public would like to provide 150-word summaries of their public comment and submit them to the clerk, we are happy to insert them into the minutes. After that statement, Ms. Chair Hyland, would you like me to take a vote on this matter?
Yes, please. Let's take a roll.
On the motion, Member Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee, aye. Member Padmanabhan.
Aye.
Padmanabhan, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes without objection. Next on the agenda is item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Do we have members of the public for general public comment today?
Zach Karnazes, please.
And let me just jump in here, Mr. Karnazes, before you start public comment, just to explain to you a little bit about how we do public comment. So this particular item is general public comment, which is about anything, but specifically not on the agenda. We do take public comment on actions, on votes, on items as we go down. That's why it's like that. It might appear as a clerical error to you, but it is not. So when we state public comment, this is general public comment, not on the agenda. All other public comment is called after motions are made. That's our standard practice. So on that note,
with all due respect, Chair Member, it does not say that on the agenda, and that's all I'm asking for.
That's been the process here for the last 21 years. So that's how we do it. I know other bodies do it differently, but we can certainly consider putting that on the agenda. That's not a bad idea. Okay, so Mr. Karnazes is first. Anyone else who'd like to make public comment, please let Victor know after Mr. Karnazes has had his 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, you may begin.
Hi, I'm using a timer for the 3 minutes. Thank you. This is Zach Karnazes, again, addressing this body, and again, deeply concerned that the meeting minutes were just approved without any consideration, it seems, of the public. And I did actually submit, again, as I mentioned twice, 2 emails detailing corrections to the meeting minutes. So if those could be added, as mentioned previously just now, my summary of what I actually said, the actual facts, that would be appreciated. I mentioned so I sent a number of emails in August None of them were replied to. I got a separate reply with a different subject line that did not accommodate my disability request, which is to have replies that actually are numbered, that they respond to the various issues around access and just basic fair treatment with regard to these meetings. There was yet another clerical error that told me the meeting was going to happen on September 7th, and I did not get a new email regarding the agenda as it has apparently changed. Again, I have stated 3 emails at least, 2 meetings so far. File number 21033 states the incorrect respondent. I have said it over and over and over and over again. I don't know how many times I can say this without being talked down to and told that there's just, it's my fault or I'm confused. It's very clear that HSA is the respondent. They have been the ones providing the records and been responding since February. And that is the person who should be contacted to be heard for that case. The ongoing clerical errors are numerous, and I do not have time to list all of them. As I mentioned previously, I was denied an extension and a disability accommodation. That's happened more times than I can count now. I've had to involve the ADA coordinator and solely and specifically because this department does not seem to understand how to respond to or be just at all cordial or kind with regard to the most basic conditions of fair access to these meetings. People do not say their names when they're responding on these phone calls, so I don't even know who I'm speaking to. They don't even say when an item has a public comment after it, and that's not even announced on the agenda. It doesn't even say public comment for item 2 usually, for things like that. There are so many access issues to these meetings, and that's just a separate from the fact that, I get emails with these numbers, case number 2101, whatever it is, and they don't even say what the case is about. A simple sentence of substance would be a world of help to the public. This process is convoluted, it's difficult, and it seems that there are intentional barriers being put in place to make it even harder. Please stop and make this accessible. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to provide public comment?
Warfield, please.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and also P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I would certainly like to support the previous speaker, Mr. Karnazes, with regard to pretty much everything that he has said. He's somebody who I'm not familiar with whether he has followed Sunshine as closely as some other folks have, but I don't see that making it easier for the public to understand what's happening and how would be a bad idea. It might require a few words, for example, to say public comment is taken after every agenda item. It might be helpful to say public comment in the agenda at every agenda item where you're calling public comment. Recall that you're not taking public comment, well, I'm not sure that you've had closed meetings, but closed meetings don't necessarily require, if you're having closed meetings, that there be public comment on all the steps. I appreciate that your administrator or that Victor Young has said as a response to, in the previous matter, that members of the public can file 150-word or less summaries of what they have said, if they wish. But it's very disturbing to think that that would be a substitute for your duty to provide minutes, certainly minutes that would be a record of what happened, and the law requires you to give a summary of what each member of the public has said during public comment. That's in the law. And if you only say a tiny portion of what they said or misrepresent what they say or say it wrongly or and so on and so forth, you're not doing your job under the law. the law requires a summary, and that means a fair representation of what the public has said. And I'm not sure why you're apparently so resistant to providing a fair summary. I also think that it would be useful for you to say names of who is speaking so it's clear for the folks on the phone who's talking. And I certainly think, and have said it before and agree with Mr. Carneses, that the specificity of the agenda should be, in all respects, useful to the public, including what is this complaint about. Most of the complaints are about violations of the same sections of the law. Why not say what it's actually about specifically in a way the public can follow, and the individual even? Thanks very much.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to provide general public comment?
Yes, anonymous number 3.
You may begin.
Thank you very much. This is anonymous number 3. First, I'd like to agree with the previous 2 speakers, especially about accuracy of what gets recorded in the minutes. One thing I'd like to point out is that one of your committees said it's not just the public comment whose 150-word summaries can be sent, but even if you are one of the parties, I don't know if this committee wants to do that, but if it does, it's pretty helpful to be able to just send 150-word summaries of your own arguments and evidence when you're a party. The second thing is other committees, both the Complaints Committee and the Compliance Committee are now doing their discussions within committee of various suggested improvements to SOTF process. I hope EOTC takes up some that they are interested in and also discusses them as additional agenda items. And finally, as always, I could tell you how sunshine is going on, what's good and bad. One thing I realized is there are criminal violations defined for both public records and public meetings. For public records, destruction of public records before the time defined in state law is a crime. And for public meetings, either conducting a closed session when it's not allowed, or conducting being present for an action that is not authorized under the Brown Act for a policy body or in the Brown Act or legislative body is a crime. And I don't see these being used very often at SOTF. So instead, what I started doing is I started sending threats of legal action to various policy bodies and agencies in the city, and it absolutely works. I've done it before with the PUC. I did it last night with the Port Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Both of them changed what they were going to do based on those threats of legal action. So apparently, when you tell a public official that they could be charged with a crime, they start listening instantly. And the SOTF has the authority to refer to the DA and the AG. Maybe the DA won't do anything, but you always have the AG. Especially when you have these violations of public records and public meeting laws, you should start citing criminal statutes and making those referrals. And I can bet they're going to start complying very quickly. Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to provide public comment, general public comment? Hearing no additional requests, I believe that we can close general public comment, Chair Hyland.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I believe that Member Yankee would like to make a statement.
Yes, just briefly. I never received a response, so I'm not sure if he received it, but I would direct Mr. Carneses to an email I sent to him regarding some of his concerns that he had raised in the last meeting about his files, and that was sent on August 31st. The subject line, your pending SOTF files. So that might answer some of the questions that he has if he wants to search that email. That was all.
What's the date of that email?
8/31.
8/31. Okay. All right. Okay. Next item, please.
Yes, item number 4, complaint filed by Mary Miles against Tiffany Lynn Wilson, Philip Ginsburg, and the Recreation and Parks Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code, Section 67.21, by failing to respond to a records request in a complete and or timely manner, 67.24, by failing to provide public information, 67.25, by failing to respond in a complete and timely manner to an immediate disclosure request, 67.26, by failing to provide non-minimal withholding, 67.27, by failing to provide Written justification for withholding 67.29-2 by failing to provide access to the department web page, and 67.29-7 by failing to keep and preserve correspondence and records.
Hello, I'm Mary Miles. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Miles. Thank you.
Okay, should I begin?
Just hold on 1 second. Is the respondent here? Ms. Lynn Wilson?
Tiffany Lynn Wilson is present.
All right. Great. We have both people here. And Ms. Miles, what we do is we'll hear from you first, and anyone supporting you, and then we'll hear from Ms. Wilson. And the clerk will let you know when he's ready.
Chair Hyland, how much time would you like to allocate?
You can give them 5 minutes.
Okay. Ms. Miles, you may begin.
Thank you. I'm Mary Miles. This is complaint case 21081. The factual chronology preceding the complaint, it's pretty well established in the packet, and it seems to be undisputed. On June 4, 2021, I made 2 public records requests to the San Francisco Recreation and Parks Department. One for approval documents for the Great Highway project since January 1, 2020, and 2 for all environmental documents on the existing and further future closure of the Great Highway. I received no acknowledgement or response. I sent numerous follow-up reminders. On June 22nd, 2021, I got a response from Ms. Lynn Wilson, who I then understood was the records custodian for Recreation and Parks, that the requests had been, quote, lost in the shuffle, unquote, but she would, quote, begin working on them, unquote. I then sent more reminders and received nothing. On June 29, Ms. Lynn Wilson stated, quote, I am still working with our capital/planning department for any documents responsive to your request, and would be sending you documents as they are available, unquote. Got nothing further, and on July 4, 2021, submitted a sunshine sunshine complaint to this body. I guess I would go to the Rec Parks response at page 52 of the SOTF packet. That response is dated August 13, 2021, and it says, quote, please be advised that we have received this complaint and will be providing more information in the next week. To date, Ms. Miles has received all responsive documents that are in our possession. The records that she is continuing to request do not exist, as no environmental study was conducted, unquote. Ms. Lynn Wilson, in this response to this body, provides nothing showing what she claims was provided after this complaint was filed. But that's not the biggest problem, the fact that I didn't get anything and that was responsive at all to the request, which is quite a routine request. It's not a lot of paper. Her response to SOTF is dated August 13, 2021. On Sunday, August 15, 2021, Rec Park disingenuously reinvented the relevant project, which was the closure of the Great Highway to vehicles, and instead called it, quote, Great Highway Weekday Reopening, unquote. So on Sunday, August 15, 2021, with no public process whatsoever, Mr. Ginsburg, Director of Rec Parks, approved this reinvented reopening project. After 2 days previous, Ms. Lynn Wilson had claimed there weren't any responsive documents. On that date, Sunday, August 15, Mr. Ginsburg signed a unilateral directive, not with any public process again, approving the reinvented thing, and planning department, and got a planning department exemption that same day, Sunday, August 15. Guess what? Nobody's looking, nobody knows. But in any event, let's go to the initial violation, which was that Rec Park did not timely or accurately respond. It's pretty cut and dried that no responsive materials were provided or were timely provided. Even if there weren't any available, the public agency, Rec Parks, has both an ethical obligation to answer a records request and an obligation to assist the public in requesting and reaching and obtaining the available documents. That didn't happen.
Miles, your time is up.
My time is up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll have time to talk more. We'll ask you questions. You'll have a 3-minute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I would like to add something, but let me know when I can.
Yeah, we will do that.
Thank you.
All right. Is anybody here in support of Ms. Miles that wants to be party to this item? Hearing none. Victor, would you like to cue the respondent?
Yes, Miss Lynn Wilson, you may begin when you are ready.
Hi, this is Tiffany Lynn Wilson speaking on behalf of Rec and Park. While I agree with Ms. Miles that she did not receive a response in a timely manner, we provided all of the documents that we do have in our possession regarding her immediate disclosure request. On Monday, July the 26th, I responded to her request with the responses that were provided by Capital and Planning. No environmental act had been, no CEQA had been done regarding the closure of the Great Highway, as this was something that was in response to the pandemic. It was something that had happened as a result of regular sand dune maintenance for the beach that they do, that the PUC and DPW does yearly. And because they ended up closing a portion of the Great Highway, the Board of Supervisors had allegedly asked that it stayed closed and that it remained closed as a response to the pandemic. Not something that was originally thought of by the Rec and Park Department. It was not something that we were planning for, and because of that, there are no environmental documents available. Our department did acknowledge that we would be filing for CEQA later on, and when we did file those documents, the CEQA documents, I did send those over to Ms. Miles. I also provided her with, I believe, 14 documents that are somewhat related to the Great Highway, but not exactly what she was asking for, again, because we don't have exactly what she's asking for. We do not have any environmental documents whatsoever. I did send her information regarding the June 10th hearing that she asked for, provided our website link where all of the Joint Recreation and Park Commission and MTA hearing documents were. I believe, we've provided everything that we have. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody in support of the respondent? Hearing none, members, this is before you.
Sure, I'll ask a question. This is Member Yankee for Ms. Miles. I'm just trying to get a handle on what documents you're still looking for. Maybe that's what we're going to get you in your comments there at the beginning when you ran out of time. But it sounds to me like the department is saying that no environmental records exist, and so I'm just curious what records then are still pending that you believe you need to have to have the.
Well, certainly, we think it was highly disingenuous for 2 days later the Rec and Parks Department and Ms. Lynn Wilson to suddenly come up with an approval document and an environmental exemption of a different project that they're calling the reopening of Great Highway. That was not voluntarily, contrary to what Ms. Lynn Wilson said, that was not voluntarily disclosed to anyone, including me. I had to do another sunshine request to get that. That was provided under a different request, but my point is their behavior has defeated the purpose of sunshine at 67.1A through E by totally obstructing and not disclosing the requested documents, nor saying that they were unavailable. The first time they were said to be unavailable was in the August 13 response to this committee or this SOCDF. So in that respect, there was a willful and misleading and totally non-transparent implementation of a project that affects a huge tens of thousands of people every single day, and no environmental review. Okay, if they don't have it, then why not tell the person who requests that? If they don't have an approval of it, of record, again, not entirely, if they don't have an approval, then telling SOCDF that there's nothing there, and then 2 days later on a Sunday, suddenly creating something that's not provided and not transparent and not open to the public in any way, that seems, to my way of thinking, to violate the very purpose of sunshine. So as far as the records initially requested, I guess there's nothing anyone can do if they say they don't exist, then suddenly they're reinvented in some different sort of project. So I suppose if they say they didn't exist 2 days before that, I guess they didn't exist, and there's no further action that I can take except to say, as said, they have obstructed the purpose of sunshine in their machinations. But that said, I'll say they didn't timely answer, even if it said there are no other documents to be disclosed under this thing. Even if it's found that to be so, then they still, waited and caused the requester to have to ask over and over again, and said they had somehow not been able to get to them, and this and that, every excuse in the books, and then suddenly there aren't any. We can't believe they didn't know that. These are routine documents. They're not obscure. They're not something that needs to be searched for at all.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. I also see Member Padmanabhan has her hand up. Beck, go ahead.
Yes. So my question is for the respondent, Ms. Lynn Wilson. So in your August 13th email, you wrote that we will be providing more information in the next week. What were you looking for? What kind of information were you looking for if you already knew that the documents did not exist? What were you planning to provide?
Oh, the documents that I was planning to provide was merely a response in it was a response to her complaint. That's all it was. The documents, as I said, do not exist. On an email that I had sent Ms. Miles on July 26th, again, I copy and pasted her request. So everything was numbered with regard to her first item in her request. I wrote no responsive documents. The second request, there are no responsive documents now, but we will be applying for an EIR application in CEQA for future studies. And PUC is submitting an environmental application later in 2021. I also gave her, again, the information on the June 10th hearing, which was the June 2021 Joint Recreation and Park Commission and MTA. And then for her third item, I said I referred her back to seeing 2B, which was all of the explanatory documents in the staff report and the slide and presentation, which was on our website for the Joint Recreation and Park Commission and MTA meeting.
Ms. Lynn, are you finished, Member Padmanabhan?
I just want to add that on June 29th, you wrote to Ms. Miles that you were working on it. So from June 29th to August 13th, did you not know that the environmental documents did not exist? Because you finally wrote on August 13th that the documents...
I'm sorry, no, I wrote her on July the 26th that the documents do not exist.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Lynn Wilson, a question for you as well from me. The phrasing of the Ms. Miles' request is a little narrow when she puts the word all environmental documents. If that word wasn't there, if it was all documents, emails, communications regarding the Great Highway, I'm curious what materials would come up? Because I'm sure there's been some communications between Rec and Parks, MTA, Board of Supervisors. What would that search yield?
The search would probably yield, like you've said, email communications between the two groups. I am not a part of the group that was part of these communications, so I would not know exactly, but I would assume that it would be email communications as far as, the board or the supervisor has requested that it remains open. We have some public emails that have come in support of the reopening and some in support of it remaining closed. So there are different, emails regarding that would go to the commission as well as to
I think she's after the mechanics of how and why the Great Highway was closed, why it was then reopened, and perhaps, Ms. Miles, that might be worth rephrasing, because by putting in the word environmental, if there are indeed no environmental studies, well, guess what? They have answered your question correctly. But I think if you broaden the scope of your search, and I don't know if you've done subsequent or other searches asking, widening that aperture a little bit, what has resulted? I'm still disappointed in the delays in getting answers to your questions. Yes, no, maybe, and also in not directing to other departments where these documents might be, if they do exist. These are all things that someone's experiences as Ms. Lynn Wilson, who I've dealt with over the last, 5-6 years in that department, could have been able to help you with. But let me ask you, if you were to widen your search, would that get to what you're looking for, do you think?
I thank you for asking, but I'm not sure it would. The reason being that if there were no documents showing approval of this project that were made in public, or that there was any public approval whatsoever of this project since January 1, 2020, as I placed in my original request, and if there were no documents justifying the implementation of the closure of the Great Highway, which is the project at hand, if there were no documents requesting environmental review or anything justifying it on the basis of CEQA, if they didn't exist, then the first part of the initial request should have just been promptly answered, hey, we didn't do anything right. We didn't approve this publicly. We didn't do any CEQA review of it. We just decided to close it one day. And it's been closed for 1.5 years now, until the reopening just a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
for 4.5 days per week.
And Ms. Miles, I'm a little bit familiar with this
Right.
topic, but not 100%. But it sounds like it was a directive from the Board of Supervisors, based on what I hear. Have you made?
Yes, I've made numerous inquiries to many agencies, MTA, Board of Supervisors, so on, and they're just. It appears that the thing was just done with no transparent public process, no notice, no, we're going to do this at the next meeting, nothing like that, okay? So Rec Park was instrumental in implementing it and in pushing for it. That's my take on it, but again, it would require a lot more time than I have right now. The bottom line, however, is that 2 days after telling SOTF that there were no records, they created records. But this time they created those the records for a project of their own invention called the Great Highway Weekday Reopening Project. And they did it on a Sunday when nobody could know about it or participate in it. It was totally unilaterally done. What can I say? I did, again, to answer your question, subsequently request the documents on this reopening thing that took place on a Sunday, and I did get them. But two things going around here. They're machinations to change what the project was from closure to reopening. That was very disingenuous and obstructive of the purpose of the sunshine and public transparency. I mean, there's no notice, no public way for the public to participate. But on the reopening, sure, it's better than closure from my standpoint, but that's not what Sunshine's about. Sunshine's about, is it plausible that they didn't know they were going to do that on August 15? Is that plausible after telling this SOTF that there were no documents on August 13, that they didn't know what they were going to do on August 15? Same with the previous question. It's not plausible that if they knew there were no documents, that they would take another month to say that.
Okay.
I think it's a matter of just being transparent at this point, serving the Sunshine Ordinance purpose of transparency and disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly help you get documents that we believe to exist. And
yes.
It does seem odd that these actions were taken without the usual notices, meetings, emails, environmental studies, etc. That does seem out of the norm of what Rec and Park and the way the city functions. I certainly agree with you. It does seem odd, but I think what we have to do is, we have to, first of all, I think we're in agreement. This isn't our jurisdiction, but we have to identify documents or records that are public that you're after they haven't provided, and I'm certainly struggling in that regard. I don't know how my other members are feeling, but that's what we got to narrow this down to grasp onto something that we can then send up to the full task force to investigate further. On that note, let me hand over to Member Yank, who has had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I have Ms. Lynn Wilson. I have a question for you. It sounds like there was some type of official environmental report issued 2 days after you had told Ms. Miles that there wasn't one at that time. Is that correct, that there was one 2 days later?
I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact date. And the only reason that I don't recall that is because while I respond to sunshine requests, I am not a part of the capital and planning department, so none of that information is privy to me as far as submitting the environmental documents. That would all be through capital and planning, and would probably be in accordance with MTA and PUC, possibly DPW as well. But that's not information that I was privy to. So,
okay, so
unless somebody had asked me about it and I went to go and ask capital and planning, that's not a project that I would automatically know about. This is not information that's freely given to me.
Okay, so this is where I'm at. It sounds like that there was some type of environmental issued very shortly after a response was given to Ms. Miles that there wasn't one. And it may be true that there wasn't, an officially filed EIR or anything like that. But I would imagine, I having seen some of these documents, it could be quite lengthy, and I would imagine that there would have been some type of draft or the origins of something. I can't imagine that in 2 days there was absolutely nothing, not a single word on any piece of paper about an environmental impact report, and somehow over the weekend one materialized, out of nowhere. I would imagine that some of this work had to have been going on for some time. And like I said, it very well may be that, the final product was done after Ms. Miles, but I would imagine drafts or supporting documents and such may have very well been in existence. And to your other point is I heard that you said that there might be other departments, capital planning or something.
So capital they are under Rec and Park, but we do not work in the same building at all. Like we don't. For what I do, it's not something that I interact with them often.
So my question, right? So my follow-up question would be, part of the ordinance not only requires you respond with what you personally have, but to assist the requester in finding the information. So my question is, now it sounds like your testimony is that, other departments may have had this type of information. So did you reach out to those departments on behalf of Ms. Miles, or did you direct her potentially to those departments to look to get these responsive documents?
I did say that the PUC would be submitting an environmental application later in 2021, and that was something that, again, these responses were provided to me from capital and planning. These are, and that is information that I emailed to her on July the 26th. I said there are no responsive documents now for specific CEQA documents, but they will be applying for an environmental application for future studies. This was information that was, again, merely given to me. I do not have information as far as, when all of this planning had originally started in response to the pandemic closure. Again, that's exactly how, the closure of the Great Highway had begun. It was not something that Rec and Park had planned beforehand. It was not something that, was ever in discussion. It was a response that the Board of Supervisors had, said, yes, let's keep this closed.
Right. Okay. So I guess, Member Highland, to your point, I guess beyond the timeliness issue, is getting to the fact that I would suspect that there were some documents. Obviously, it sounds like at this point they very well may have been disclosed as part of the final product, but I would imagine that, like I said, something didn't go from nothing to a full EIR report in 2 days. And so I have concerns that there may have been things in draft form or other types of supporting documentation which reviewing Ms. Miles' request, it does say all documents supporting that environmental document. So I would imagine any supporting documents would have been, a responsive document to this. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And I quick follow-up question, Ms. Lynn Wilson. When you search, do you have access to, draft documents? I mean, are you searching on all three databases, or do you have to physically, formally email someone over at PUC or Capital Planning and say, I've got a requester asking for this, this, and this? Do you not have direct access to those departments?
I do not have direct access to those departments. I email, as far as who in capital planning would have the information, I email the capital and planning director and ask who's the project manager, who's working on this. Mm-hmm. And then the project manager and I discuss the sunshine request. I send the sunshine request over. We discuss the sunshine request as far as what type of documents do you have and whether or not they're responsive. Again, the question that, that was requested for item number 2 was proposed development of a possible pilot project for up to 2 years. That wasn't something that we had beforehand. It wasn't something that was in discussion at all. We didn't have a possible pilot. We weren't planning a possible pilot. I had asked Ms. Miles if she wanted any of the public comment, that was done. And I would have been happy to provide all of the emails in support, all of the emails that are against the closure. But if you're going to ask for environmental documents, we don't have those.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions, or should we let them summarize?
Almost there.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to ask your closing statements. You'll have 3 minutes for each of these. And Ms. Lynn Wilson, as respondent, you get to go first on this one.
You may begin.
Tiffany Lynn Wilson, while I agree that the documents were not provided in a timely manner and the response was not provided in a timely manner, it was provided in completion. If Ms. Miles has any other questions regarding, more documents, I'd be happy to provide them for her. She does not need to submit an actual, a formal sunshine request. I'd be happy to have a conversation with her regarding whatever documents she still is looking for. But up to this point, we've provided everything in our possession that's relevant to what she has asked for.
Are you finished, Ms. Wilson?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Ms. Miles, you may begin.
Mary Miles, I am just having a problem here because saying that documents don't exist is one thing. Not timely responding is another thing, and there's no dispute that there was no timely response. But the problem is also the subsequent action taken by Rec Park on a Sunday, 2 days after their response to this SOTF complaint, that approved, that created other documents, and those were not forthcoming without another without another sunshine request. Again, there's something disingenuous that goes to the very purpose of sunshine in 6.7.1 A through E. here that's contrary to and defeats the purpose of public transparency when an agency does subsequently, reinvent a project and then reinvent documents supporting it was actually an environmental exemption under CEQA and an approval, a one-page approval, unilaterally with no public process. There's something wrong. There's a disconnect here, and in my view, when you go to the purpose of sunshine, you're talking about a willful obstruction here of transparency and the very protection of public access that Sunshine's supposed to provide. So that would be my final comment here, and that would be, we could either, I guess, from your standpoint, procedurally, continue this thing before the full SOTF. We could reach a conclusion today, but if there is a conclusion today, I'd have to ask for finding of a violation here. And given the timing of it, I would have to say it's just very strange and unusual and not in compliance in any way with 67.21 or the other provisions that I've quoted in my complaint. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. I just had one quick follow-up question, Ms. Miles.
Yes.
The document that you were given, that August 15th environmental document, how large is it?
Just a moment. It is an environmental exemption determination. It's approximately 6 pages. It's not long. It's a section 15269 determination. And then we have the General Manager Directive 21-002 that is 1 page long.
Okay. So it does seem conceivable that might have been put together and put into the public domain on that day. I mean, there's not like a history of other documents that led to that you can see. Like previous.
Well, I perhaps it's what they're claiming is that they've reinvented this thing and it's now a different project. It's very, very troubling. But
just by
in other words, if they can do that, then just reinvent the project. Thusly, that makes everything okay about no public disclosure of the closure of the Great Highway. I'm not sure I can get behind that.
Yeah, I took a look at as we were talking, I took a look at their website, and there really isn't much out there. Some basic studies and this and that, but nothing environmental, as you said. So it does seem odd to me. And what we do in this body is we basically just make sure that jurisdiction's okay, and then we refer it to the main body that will actually find the violations or no violations. And we'll probably recommend, I'm guessing, that we do start with some violations of timeliness, and then maybe get more into the nitty-gritty of, was anything actually there that was not disclosed to you. But
thank you.
Yeah, that's our process here. Members, does anyone want to make a motion? How do you want to package this? I did hear the respondent say that she's open to closing this, but I think we need to push this to the full task force to register violations, and then perhaps in that time maybe more documents will come to light. I don't know, but what's your pleasure?
Yeah, I can make a motion. This is Member Padmanabhan.
Okay.
So I move to find that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force has jurisdiction, that the records are public, and to refer the matter to the full task force for hearing with the recommendation that the task force find the Rec and Parks Department in violation of Sunshine Ordinance 67.25 and 67.21C. 67.25 is timely, and it refers to an immediate disclosure request. And 67.21C is for failing to assist in identifying the existence, form, and nature of the records requested.
One moment, please. Okay. You have a second.
This is Member Yankee. I will second that.
All right. Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment on this matter?
Anonymous number 3.
Okay. Okay, begin.
Thank you very much. I agree with almost all of the motion, but I think part of it is wrong for 2 reasons. This request was made, I believe, during or after the mayor's proclamations that if you agree with them, then 6725 for timeliness cannot be a violation. Instead, the correct violation is CPRA Government Code 6253C for failure to provide a timely determination, notice of determination of disclosable public records within 10 days. And they clearly didn't do that. And but the timeliness provisions in the Sunshine Ordinance, if you agree that the mayor's orders are valid, are not currently in effect. And so instead of 6725, I would just suggest you amend the motion, remove 6725, and add a violation, a recommended violation of CPRA Government Code 6253C for failure to provide a determination of disclosable public records within 10 days of the request. Second, they have, I think, somewhat misled you, the respondent. Capital and Planning, sure, it's not on the same floor as her, but it is a part of the Rec and Park Department. So assistance alone is not what is required. They are required to tell you the final answer, yes or no, are there records. Capital and Planning is a subdivision of the Rec and Park Department. Phil Ginsburg is responsible for it. Whether Tiffany Lynn Wilson is physically able to access their files has no relevance. They're not a separate department. They're a division of the Rec and Park Department, and I'm on their website right now. They have a deputy director, not a director. So assistance alone is not required. Tiffany Lynn Wilson and Phil Ginsburg have to give the final answer for everything within Rec and Park, which includes possibly did they have, some of those draft or supporting documents those 2 days before they issued it. I don't know if they did, but if they did, they themselves are required to provide it and not merely provide assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public for public comment on this matter? Hearing no responses at this time, I believe that we can close public comment. You're muted. Chair Hyland, you're still currently muted, but I believe we can close public comment at this time.
Yes, we can. I think we've waited long enough.
Oh, on the motion. Oh, please.
Hold on, Victor. Hold on 1 second. Based on the public comment, does the maker and seconder want to edit their motion, or are you happy with the version that you have?
I'd like to amend the motion just a little bit. Instead of 67.25, I think 67.21B might be applicable here, and also CPRA Government Code 6253C.
Okay, one moment. Can you state the Sunshine Ordinance section again, please?
67.21B for failing to provide the requested records in a complete or timely manner. And 67.21C, which stands as before, and CPRA Government Code 6253C for failure to provide.
Sorry, 65.
6 CPRA Government Code.
Yes.
6253.
53.
I believe it is C. I'm not sure.
Okay.
This is Member Yankee. I will accept the amendment. Seconded.
When you're ready, Victor, we can take a roll on that.
Okay. On that motion, Member Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee, aye. Member Padmanabhan.
Aye.
Padmanabhan, aye. Chair Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. The motion passes without objection. Next on the agenda is item number 5. Complaint filed by Charles Perkins and concerned residents of the Sunset against Bill Ginsburg and the Recreation and Parks Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25 by failing to provide public information that must be disclosed. 67.25 by failing to respond in a complete and timely manner to an immediate disclosure request, and 67.27 by failing to provide written justification for withholdings. So, may I ask, is the petitioner present at this time, Mr. Perkins? Or the
yes, I'm here.
Okay, and I believe that Ms. Lynn Wilson is still present.
Hello.
Okay. I will. Mr. Perkins, you have 5 minutes. You may begin your comments when you are ready.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. This is my first time here, and I didn't realize how this worked, and I wasn't prepared to speak like this. But I've been jotting down some notes here, so I'll do my best. On April 20th, I emailed a public records request, CPRA and Sunshine Ordinance, to Mr. Ginsburg and several others, high-ranking individuals at Park and Rec, seeking essentially every single piece of paper related to the closure of the Great Highway. This item is significantly related to that prior one, agenda item you just heard, agenda item number 4. But to date, I've not received a single document from Park and Rec. I've not received any sort of statement that they don't have documents. I've not received any sort of request for additional time. On May 23rd, I followed up and said, hey, I sent another email and said, hey, you haven't sent me anything yet. It's been over a month. I haven't heard a peep from you. And on May 24, I believe it was Ms. Lynn Wilson emailed me back and said, oh, yeah, thanks. We're working on it. We're going to start getting you stuff this week on a rolling basis. Well, again, I haven't gotten anything. And that's the last I heard from Park and Rec. Granted, my request was very broad. It covers everything. And now there's probably, 100 times more responsive documents than there was back in April. The closure of the Great Highway in San Francisco has been a significant event, which Mr. Ginsburg is one of probably the 2 main driving forces behind, if not the number 1 driving force in the city, in city government anyway, along with SFMTA. Park and Rec, this has been on their agenda. They scheduled a joint meeting between Park and Rec and SFMTA on June 10 to talk about the future of the Great Highway. They have their own website up that promotes the closed Great Highway as this wonderful recreation space, and it has a lot of newspaper articles about how wonderful it is, etc. I mean, there is zero question that Park and Rec is deeply, deeply involved in this major city issue that's incredibly controversial. There's been lots of protests. There's a petition with over 13,000 signatures demanding that the highway be reopened permanently. You've got the Bike Coalition and city government, pressing for complete closure. So it's been in the media quite a bit. So this is a big thing, and there's got to be thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of responsive documents. Rec and Park never got back to me and said, hey, you know what, we need a little more time. This is a real big request you made here. They just completely blew it off. And I agree with the individual on that last agenda item. This is not like accidental. This is willful. Mr. Ginsburg and others have been, this whole effort has been an insiders, like no transparency, no public scrutiny. There's a letter from Supervisor Chan related to the June 10 meeting that they scheduled that I referenced, signed by two other supervisors, Gordon Marr and Supervisor Melgar, calling them out for their lack of transparency in this process. They've been intentionally trying to operate out of the public eye and push what is clearly their agenda to have a permanent 24/7 closure of the Great Highway going forward. And they're doing all that they can to avoid public scrutiny. And it's incredibly important that we get this information because, Rec and Park is putting up just false data that my request for information would help debunk. For example, they continue to say that 144,000 people each month walk on the Great Highway when it's closed. Well, guess what? We got admissions that number, if somebody walks down and back, as just about everybody does, they get counted twice. So that 144,000 number is probably half of that out of the gate. And it also turns out that they received some cell phone data to help determine highway usage, which showed that the numbers of users have been. What's that? My time's almost
your
up.
5 minutes has elapsed.
Okay. Well, I'll finish. I'll just end then. But I think it's a no-brainer, and I think it's willful, and they haven't given me a piece of paper. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody in support of the plaintiff here? Hearing none. Victor, let Ms. Lynn Wilson know when you're ready.
So Lynn Wilson, you may begin when you're ready.
I am the only person in my department who works on sunshine requests, and so we have had a very large number of requests come in, one for the Great Highway and two for because of the pandemic in general, there has been an increase in the number of requests we've been getting. And it's been, I admit that I have not gotten back to Mr. Perkins, which I do apologize for. I do have some documents that I'm still redacting. There are a lot that he asked for. His request was very, very robust. There were, I think, 3 pages to it, possibly 4. So it was a very robust request. He was correct in saying that there were many people in our department that had documents that I've been trying to get documents from. So again, these are not documents that I have immediate access to. I'm waiting to hear back from somebody else. I have to follow up with this person. They need to send me documents. I need to ask, is this all you have? What about this particular item? What about that one? And there's a lot of people who work together on different projects. Like we may have an analyst who's working with a different project manager who may have, one document, and then somebody else may have something else. So it is a very robust request. There are lots of documents to go through. And yes, I apologize again for not having those documents to him. It's really just, my workload has been very, very intense. So, I apologize. I will get them out as quickly as I can. But yes, he has a lot of documents that he's requested.
If that completes your response, I believe we can move on to questions by the committee.
Anybody in support of the respondent? Hearing none, this is before you, members.
This is Member Yankee. I have a question for the respondent, Ms. Lynn Wilson. It sounds like you've been receiving, a lot of correspondence and requests and so forth and so on regarding this issue, and it sounds like, requests, and my guess is that these are probably not the only two who have not been responded to timely, but it sounds like there potentially could be others. So my question is if you're the only one who's working on this, have you let the department head know the status that these things aren't being able to respond to because of lack of resources, so that they could try to get you additional help or anything? I just have a concern that, lack of resources is being kind of, leaned upon as a reason. And while I can certainly, sympathize with that, that's still, we still need to, get these records out. So I guess my question, have you asked for assistance with this?
Yeah, so I have asked for assistance with this. However, the assistance that I will be provided requires me to train a new person, which, as you know, with Sunshine can take a much longer time to train somebody than to actually do the work myself. So we had an orientation to it. I provided a brief orientation to it, but he also, the person who was provided to assist, also did not have all of the computer capabilities that he needed. So there was a delay in that, working with the IT department to get all of his computer readiness to be able to work on Sunshine. So we have not been able to reconnect since then.
Do you know when potentially this assistance might be starting up, when he might be ready, so that that these requests can start getting the documents they've asked for?
I'm hoping to reconnect with him later this week and provide a more thorough training, but he's also working. This is not typically his job, right? So
okay, and I guess
it really depends on what his other duties are. He's currently assisting in the Park Patrol office as a dispatcher. So
okay, and then more specific to this case, do you have an estimated date for when Mr. Perkins can expect his documents?
I can start providing documents as soon as tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, that's all my questions for now.
Ms. Lynn Wilson, let me follow up. I also have a question for you. And members, this looks like it's something that's already gone to ethics and it's coming back to us as 6734, which is unusual because usually it's the reverse. Usually we go through our process and we recommend it to them. So I'm guessing we're going to discuss this in the full task force. But Ms. Lynn Wilson, it would certainly put you in a better light if you were able to provide a schedule of his requests and when you're going to get to them. Whether it's 10 documents a week or 10 documents a day over the next 4 or 5 weeks. and put some dates in there that are realistic given you and your partner's workload to get this information to him. Yes, it is voluminous, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. You still have to do it, but do two things. Provide a schedule of what you're going to give and an index of what you're giving. That way it's all tracked and recorded and it's in the record. And that way, we can, because once this goes past us, it'll probably go to enforcement, if you like, just compliance subcommittee, and they will check to see, are you on schedule? Are you producing those rolling documents? Do you still need more help? Because ultimately, Mr. Ginsburg is the head of the department. If you're not able to do your job, the buck stops with him. And, there is talk of some stronger enforcement measures in our body that are coming down the pipeline. So this is serious stuff. Rather than just asking for help and not getting it and just kind of doing business as usual, you need to increase your production either with help or with the department's head's help, or raise a red flag, because this is definitely building up from where I can see. And we have, just this evening we have two requests in front of you. One voluminous, one very narrow. But in either one, you're kind of failing the grade. I hate to put it to you. So between now and when this goes to the full task force, come up with a schedule of what you're going to produce and a timeline. And I would also keep working on Mrs. Miles' request. Go back to those project managers, see if there was other documents. This is going to end up on your plate, but ultimately on your department heads as well. Members, back to you. Any other comments, questions? I think this one goes straight back up to the full task force based on what I'm reading here. I'm just trying to see if there's any. I'd like to get a rolling schedule of what's going to be produced. That would definitely look good by the time we get to full task force. But other than that, this looks pretty cut and dry to me.
This is Member Yankee. I think it's just worth reading in because there was, like you mentioned, Chair Highland, this did come from the Ethics Commission. So just for, so that's in the record, I think it's worth reading the paragraph regarding what they found. And this is from P62. And it says, Ethics Commission investigators found that the RPD appears to have failed to timely or completely respond to complainant's records request, but did not identify credible evidence of a willful violation by Ginsburg. And then, like you said, they referred it back to us. So I think even the ethics investigation at this point certainly found a violation. I think it's worth, like you said, sending on to the full task force for that as well. I do have concerns. This probably isn't the proper forum to get into it, but if this is an ongoing and systemic issue with Rec and Park, then potentially we are looking at something willful if the resources aren't being properly allocated. So maybe that's something we can have a further discussion on at the full task force. And to your point, maybe if we start getting some schedules and stuff, that would be very helpful. That's all the comments I have.
Very good. Jaya, anything to add? I see a head shaking.
I think this should go to the task force.
Okay. And I don't think we need to hear any, closing arguments unless Mr. Perkins would like to say something. I believe we've heard everything we have from Ms. Lynn Wilson, because we're going to hear this at the full task force. But would you guys like to close?
I would like to just say a couple brief things, if you don't mind. If you could just
absolutely. Okay, let's go through the process then. So, Ms. Lynn Wilson, you'll have 3 minutes first, followed by Mr. Perkins. Mr. Young, you can let her know when you're ready.
You may begin.
I just want to thank you for your constructive criticism for and recommendation for a schedule. I think that's a really great idea. I'll go ahead and provide a schedule tomorrow along with the first of the first chunk of documents that I have available. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Perkins, you may begin.
Thank you. You know, I work for a major state agency, and we get public records requests all the time. I have been tasked with processing them myself, and I know that they can be, you know, burdensome at times and kind of a pain at times, to be sure. But you know what? Government entities, they don't operate anymore. They're not supposed to operate anymore behind closed doors, and the public records laws are there for a significant purpose. And in fact, you know, all legislators at state and local level, at least in California, are continuously broadening the public access rights. And the way my request was handled has been indefensible. I don't care if there's a lack of resources. You know what? Our organization has had to hire more and more people just to work on public records requests, and we continue to do so. I don't think that that's a defense to just completely blowing me off. And I mean, when we can't respond in timely fashion, we communicate, we tell the requester we need more time, we work stuff out with them. We don't just show them the hand, as occurred with me here. It's now been nearly 5 months that we're talking about. It's not like this was a little bit of a delay. They've just completely ignored my request for 5 months. And, you know, I'm sorry, but there's bad faith going on here. And I would one of the public commenters in the early part of this hearing talked about, you know, referral of these things to prosecuting agencies and the like. And, you know, I think we're at that point with, if you look at the whole